Wait, the camera's up here. Hi. What's up, everybody? My name's Lucky. This is Lucky Lad TV. I'm your host for this fine video. And, I'm trying to think of how to say this without sounding like a complete moron. I recorded all 4 episodes of the Martial Arts of Avatar, with my mic turned off. Didn't bother to check. I tried doing it with the punching bag, and doing it like that, and when I did the test recording, the microphone was on, and I could sort of just barely hear myself, and I'm like, oh, okay, so that it's not that huge of an issue. The microphone then died halfway through the first video, and I continued to record the remainder of that one and the next 3. So, instead of doing it that way, I'm going to change the martial arts of pro-bending thing, and I'm basically just going to I'm going to call this video the Martial Arts of Avatar, and I'm going to put up what I originally was going to have as the thumbnails for each of the 4 separate videos, and this way I can also go in order, and I'm going to go air, water, earth, fire, so that it's in accurate order. But basically, without further ado, this is the Martial Arts of Avatar. So, first up is air. The martial arts of airbending are based on primarily 2 Chinese martial arts. One is called Bagua Zhang, and the other one is Tai Chi, which most people are familiar with. Bagua Zhang is very often debated whether or not it's actually a martial art. And before I continue, I would like you all to understand that this is all from my personal experience. I've been doing martial arts for 16 years. This is all based on my personal experience and what I have been told over these 16 years. If you have been told something different, or if you have learned something different, please, please, please do not feel offended. Everybody learns different things. Everybody learns things in different ways. I'm sure there will be people who watch this who have different opinions than I do. I apologize if I do offend you. I don't intend to do that whatsoever. That said, I'm not going to continue to apologize throughout this video, because I think once in the beginning is enough to get my point across. So with that said, I'm going to jump back into the martial arts of airbending. It is based on Bagua Zhang and Tai Chi. Bagua Zhang is debated whether or not it can really be considered a martial art, similar to like boxing and wrestling. Except the difference being is that Bagua Zhang is generally considered more of a... It's not a martial art. I'd call it almost like a dance style, because it has nothing to do with actual fighting. Generally speaking, it's really designed for... It's similar to parkour or free running. If you watch American Ninja Warrior, that's what that show is based off of. It's sort of an offshoot of gymnastics and running put together, almost. Bagua Zhang is not about fighting in any sense of the word. It's about using your body for advanced physical purposes, I would say. It's about moving and dodging and being agile. It's not about blocking, or it's not about dodging an actual punch as much as it is dodging, just like if somebody happened to be swinging a board, or if one of those people was doing sign twirling, having the wherewithal to know how to dodge that in the most effective way possible. And you see Aang do that all the time. Aang is very flexible, and he has excellent core strength. You see him dodging things at like a 90-degree angle on one leg. That is not really possible, to be perfectly realistic. I'm sure there's some people in the world that can do it. But, you know, generally speaking, that's not something that you'll really see. and it's also based on Tai Chi. And Tai Chi, of course, as people know, is all about centering yourself. It's about manipulating the energy around you and within yourself to achieve a goal, whether it's meditation or transcendental learning, all sorts of different things. The reason I say those are the main two is because neither of those involve the attacking part of airbending. However, the attacking part of airbending is extremely minuscule. It is based on Kung Fu, one of the hundreds of forms of Kung Fu. All of the martial arts of Avatar are based off of one or another form of Kung Fu, as the show is based off of Chinese martial arts. Excuse me. Okay. They're based off of Chinese martial arts, and they all have different purposes, but the martial arts of Avatar, you see a lot of movement, like that would be an air blast from the hand in that case, it is a strong attack, but it's a lot of movement to not produce a lot of different attacks. For example, that same type of motion in waterbending would be moving the water and then shooting it forward, whereas with airbending, it's all leading up to just one single air blast. That's pretty much all I want to touch on for airbending. So now I'm going to shoot up the waterbending thumbnail and head onto that. Waterbending is the balance of martial arts, because it is the embodiment of Tai Chi, specifically Tai Chi Chuan. Taichichuan, I believe. It's the form of Tai Chi that actually involves, I'm not going to say battle, but it involves combat. It's geared more towards self-defense than meditation. Whereas generally Tai Chi is geared more towards meditation. Tai Chi Chuan is geared a little more towards self-defense. It is all about, and this is something that you hear in a lot of different martial arts, but Tai Chi Chuan is for one, it's the ancestor of it, and it's also the the pinnacle of this case, of using your opponent's force against them. Tai Chi Chuan, there are no striking moves. Like, straight up striking moves. There are no punches in Tai Chi Chuan. It's all about taking your opponent and putting them somewhere or in some sort of position that they did not want to be in and that they would be better off not being in. And the way that you see that reflected in Avatar is that, with the exception of pro-bending, which does not count for the purposes of what I'm saying, you never see somebody throwing a punch or throwing a karate chop or throwing a kick unless they are doing it in a way that is moving a stream of water with them. Like, if you see this in Avatar, it's not going to be somebody shooting a jet of water, because you're going to see more hand movement, and if you look at something like this, you imagine a flowing of water, or at least I hope you do, because it's all about gathering up the water and redirecting it to serve your purpose. In waterbending, if you're in battle, that is the purpose. It is to redirect the water at your opponent as an offensive weapon. Waterbending is also the most varied of the four bending arts, simply because there's water, but you also have steam, ice, and bloodbending, and there's also healing, and there is also the foggy swamp style. I'm virtually certain that's what it's called. I'm not entirely sure. Foggy swamp style involves bending the water within the vines that are in the swamp to use them to attack. The guy's name is Hugh, or Yu. It's pronounced Yu, but it's spelled H-U-U. That's the guy's name who has the giant wooden, like, face mask who bends the giant seaweed monster in Day of Black Sun. One of the guys' name is Tho, Tho, and I don't remember the other guy's name, but they're basically satirical comments on like the stereotypical backwoods South, but in this case it's the foggy swamp waterbenders. They don't fall under the category of traditional waterbending because they're using their waterbending for an entirely different purpose. They're using it for transportation when they're doing their boat thing, and they're using it for bending the water in the vines when they're bending the water in the vines, shockingly enough. And then there's bloodbending. Bloodbending, think of as the as the title of the episode states, think of it as puppeteering. It's really all about using your fingertips and your hands as well, but really primarily your fingertips. You don't see pretty much any movement in below the shoulders or above the shoulders for that matter. Oh god, I just hit the mic. You don't really see any movement above the shoulders or below the shoulders, or really below the elbows for that matter. Sorry, above the elbows for that matter. It's really just all in the hands and fingers, as it would be if you are using a traditional marionette, which is what that is based off of. Ventriloquism dolls, totally different story. That's the basis of waterbending, and now I'm going to move on to earthbending. Earthbending. Earthbending is the most forceful of the bending arts, I would say. Earthbending is based off of Hung Gar Kung Fu. Hung Gar Kung Fu it's very traditional, and the movements that you see in it are somewhat similar to that in traditional karate. It's a lot of really solid stances and a lot of really forceful attacks it's not based on flow, it's based off of the delivery of force. You see a lot of closed fists, not a lot of open hands. You see a lot of wide hips and knees. I know you can't see that, and I'm also sitting. You see a lot of wide hips, wide knees. You see shoulders, really, they're back. They're not closed forward into a fighting stance. Earthbending is, and I really love how they did this. They designed earthbending, and they did the same thing with the other bending arts. They designed earthbending to mirror Earth. Not the planet, like rock. They designed earthbending to mirror rocks. You're very closed, very dense, very core-oriented. It's all about not being... Watch the episode Bitter Work. In Avatar The Last Airbender, somewhere like halfway through Season 2, or Book 2 Earth, there's an episode entitled Bitter Work. Everything you need to know about the martial arts of Avatar... Sorry, not everything you need to know. A crash course of the martial arts of Avatar is in that episode. Iroh talks about the Four Nations. He describes how lightning bending works. He describes how lightning redirection works. Toph explains how earthbending works. Aang explains how airbending works because it's the opposite of earthbending. And, waterbending. Waterbending is touched on, and normal firebending is also touched on, but you can really see those much more so in the episode entitled The Sun Warriors for firebending in Book 3, Fire. And for waterbending, you can see it in the episode entitled, shockingly enough, The Waterbending Master, in Book 1. I think that's episode 16 or 17. No, I think it's 18. Because 19 and 20 are Siege of the North. So, anyway, back to earthbending. I just wanted to touch on that because it's good to have reference points. Earthbending is, one of the things that you hear Toph say is something along the lines of, be the rock, be the immovable object, which is extremely accurate to how the martial arts related to it are based. They're all about You need to be rooted into the ground. You need to be entirely connected to the ground so that nothing can move you, and so that you can deliver the force of the earth itself to whatever you are hitting. One of the riddles that you hear when you're starting out martial arts is, what is the biggest thing that will ever hit you? Me being the cheeky bastard that I am, I'm like, oh, a blue whale, because that's the largest animal that I could think of, and as far as something hitting you, you'd think it has to be something that can move. My sensei says, no, it's not a blue whale, but good guess. Which, it's not a good guess, but I was like 4. And somebody said the Empire State Building, and he says, you're getting closer, but no. The answer to the riddle is the Earth. The planet Earth itself is the biggest thing that will ever hit you. And that's the mindset behind Earthbending, and by extension the martial arts that it's based on. Or rather, that's the basis of the martial arts that, by extension, Earthbending was based on. It's about using the earth around you and being connected to it so that you can take any hit and deliver the biggest hit possible back. So that's Earthbending and thumbnail, and then I'm going to get into Firebending. Alright, the martial arts of Firebending is the easiest to explain by such huge margin. It's so simple to explain. The martial arts of Firebending are based off of Shaolin Kung Fu, specifically northern style Shaolin Kung Fu. There's also some southern style influence in there, but it's really mostly the northern, because the northern style of Shaolin Kung Fu is based off of delivering fast, powerful strikes to your opponent before they have the chance to fight back. It's basically hit them before they can hit you, and hit them with enough force so that they can't hit you. And when Zuko is getting Aang ready for Sozin's Comet, one of the things he says to him is, imagine you're striking through your opponent's heart. That's essentially what Firebending is based off of in the form of Shaolin Kung Fu. It's about striking through your opponent. Not into your opponent, through your opponent. One of the things that you never see in Firebending is you never see an incomplete motion. Everything ends. They throw a punch all the way out, and the fire comes all the way out. Whereas with Waterbending, you see them make a swiping motion, and then they're back to where they began. That's a circular motion. All the things in Firebending are linear motions. Everything has a start and an end, whereas with Waterbending and Airbending and, well, not necessarily Earthbending, but you almost never see circular momentum in Firebending. You see circular motion because the circle is representative of the sun, which is important to Firebender. So you do see a lot of this in Firebending, like them going like that, but you don't see them doing something and then returning back until the attack is done. You see them punch, the fire comes out, the fire stops coming out, and then the hand comes back. With the obvious exception, of course, of Probending. And Lightning Bending. Different stuff, though. Firebending is based off of Shaolin Kung Fu. It's a lot of really fast, really hard attacks. It's not about delivering one single strike. It's about delivering a lot of strikes with a lot of speed and a lot of ferocity. Which is why you see a lot of combinations in Firebending. You don't, generally speaking, see one punch and then they wait. Which is something that you do see, generally speaking, with Earthbending. You see them throw a giant boulder and then they're waiting for their opponent's reaction. Because they're basically reconnecting themselves to the earth in that moment. And Waterbending is a constant back and forth. Airbending is not designed for fighting, so you don't really see much fighting with Airbending. But with Firebending, it's a constant stream of forward attacks. Like, you don't see them moving side to side a lot or moving back. It's really just move forward as much as you can, delivering as much attack power as you can. It's not about avoid and evade the way that airbending is based off. It's not about using your opponent's force for their own downfall like waterbending is. It's not about being rooted like earthbending is. It's about delivering as much force as you can, as quickly as you can, to as small of a target point as you can. So that's the basis of firebending. That's pretty much everything that I want to touch on with this, with one exception. I was going to make a separate video about this, but there's not really a point because it would only be like 2 minutes long. Energy bending. The 2 points that Aang and by extension the other people hit when they do energy bending is the third eye, which is located, like, if you make a triangle with your eyes, it's the top point, and the solar plexus. The solar plexus is essentially located directly below where your ribs meet. Like, that little area right there is your solar plexus. It is it's pretty much the center of your body, not in terms of mass, but in terms of, like, sorry, not in terms of, like, height and width, in terms of mass. Like, this is where your body weight is centered. It's, like, right around here, because your legs have plenty of mass, and your head and your arms have plenty of mass. So it's like the center of your chest, stomach, the center of your torso is basically where your solar plexus is. You hit those 2 points because they're basically saying that's where, at some point or another, all the energy has to pass through one or both of those points. So, at least this is my theory. I believe that when Aang took away Ozai's firebending, he was essentially cutting off those 2 points. I don't know how it works. I believe that the process behind it is that he blocks those 2 points so that energy no longer passes through them, so he can't firebend anymore. I think. I could very easily be wrong. But that's all I wanted to touch on for the martial arts of firebending. I'm going to head on out. I'm not going to hit my microphone again. Best of luck to you out there, and I'll see y'all soon. Goodbye.